America's first competition talk show. You're in the hub.
The Macintosh computers, the Apples, these things are like tanks. They're made out of titanium. They're beautiful things. You don't
they're
think so?
beautiful and they're really pretty, and I like them.
Do you really?
No,
or
it's
you just
really
being
pretty. But
facetious?
guess what? They break down just like
No.
yes, they
No,
do. They
no,
break.
see, the problem is, the Mac is not the problem. Mac is perfect, and we've addressed this before. If there's a problem with the Mac computer, it's user error, it's operator error. It's always operator.
Fodder.
No, it's
Fodder.
operator error, because the Mac cannot be wrong.
No, the Mac can be wrong.
It is.
The Mac is just like any other piece of equipment.
You know, if
But
you,
you drive a Toyota, and you probably think that's perfect too, right?
You know what? It's better. It's close to it. You know, I think it became a more reliable vehicle the moment the government targeted it as a safety disaster. Seriously. Speaking of targeting the potential disasters here, don't know if you heard about this, but by the way, welcome to the program, Joel Aaron. This is Brian. Brian's on the program this week. First time since we did this on the radio, and Brooke is back. Because Brooke adds a little Bayou flavor to the program.
Love it.
But no. What am I talking about? The Supreme Court just last week made a decision. This was covered on Breitbart TV, and basically they said that ruled that they could, and this was the interpretation of the Breitbart article, ruled that they could void the Constitution in their courtroom. Here's how they arrived at this point. There was a story out of the Circuit Court, the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals in Georgia, which originated in the city of Atlanta, involving one William Windsor and one Christopher Glenn. Christopher Glenn represents a company called Made of the Made of the Mist. It's in Niagara Falls, which honestly I just think they're jaded to begin with, because after all, I mean, this is Canada, okay? They're just pissed that we've got the lakes on our side of the line. But that notwithstanding, okay, so here's Christopher Glenn, Made of the Mist, levels a suit against William Windsor of Georgia, who'd done some contract work from them, implying that he had been a thief and had been involved in bribery against Made of the Mist. Immediately, I'm thinking, this is a company like, come on, a name like Made of the Mist, that's like a carny operator. I mean, honestly, how could you trust a group like that? But so he levels this complaint, right? And so they go to court with it, and basically he is ruled in violation, and Windsor decides he's going to challenge the ruling in the city court. He's going to challenge it to the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals, and he goes through all of the proper due diligence. He actually obtained deposition testimony from Glenn and the other managers of the Made of the Mist boat ride, which is what this company does. They actually admitted under oath, after Glenn originally admitted under oath said under oath that he had been a thief. Windsor had been a thief and had bribed the company. They then went back and admitted under oath that he had lied under oath, that Glenn had lied under oath, that Made of the Mist had not been violated by this contract worker, William Windsor. So fast forward. William Windsor is not getting the justice he feels he deserves, and so he appeals this process all the way up to the United States Supreme Court, and in a decision leveled last week, they dismissed it with a one-word decision: denied. Basically, they said this case was not worth their time, and so William Windsor is coming back now and saying, how dare they? This is an abroachment of due process of the law. My rights have been violated. We're trampling on the Constitution. There's no more room for any kind of support. And my big question is, so did they really blow it off, the Supreme Court, or did they just stay within their jurisdiction? It's kind of like saying, man, it really sucks to be you, you know? Here's $1 for the train ride, and hope life turns out better for you in the future. Were they punting here?
I think there are a lot of times where the Supreme Court maintains a level of discretion, and I think this might be one of those times, in the sense that they didn't feel like setting precedents in this scenario was necessarily warranted, although as unfair or whatever. I mean, we look at the case and we're like, oh, that's not fair that happened. However, the Supreme Court is really there for big constitutional things, like really big determined things. And so I don't know that I'm as
concerned about this as William Windsor is.
Yeah, I think that these judges in these scenarios definitely overstep their bounds in a lot of cases, and I think we definitely have a lot of judicial activism.
Well, he did come back after releasing the article, which was out on PR Newswire, which obviously is a paid-for PR source. So he's trying to get this out there.
Right.
He's writing oh my God, an expose, a book on the deal, which you can pick up in Barnes & Noble, Borders, and Amazon.com. So I don't know why you'd possibly, does he have a vested interest? No, in this story getting out? I mean, Brian, here's the thing they brought up.
Yes.
The key question, the article says, he says in his article, the key question answered negatively by the U.S. Supreme Court was this: whether federal courts must be stopped from operating corruptly and ignoring all laws, rules, and facts. But it's almost as a catch-22. I mean, if they had answered in the affirmative, the Supreme Court would have been putting duly elected judges on trial, at least in the case of the city and state courts, and bringing charges against the judges. I
can guarantee you that there are probably 1 million, if not more than that, cases out there that have not been heard. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Based on what she said, they're looking for the absolute big, huge, gigantic, let's go after this kind of a guy. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Do you think this Windsor character was it a witch hunt? Do you think he was on a witch hunt to try and put the Supreme Court in a no-win situation?
In my opinion, most people are always interested in their own outcome. Okay? I hate to use this word selfish, but I think most people are selfish because what they look at is how they're going to win in any situation. And if they can find a way to point blame someplace else to help prove their point, then they will do that. To get as big as the Supreme Court, you know what I mean? That's a huge audience.
Yeah. Well, and I kind of agree. I mean, the thing here is, and this is him writing. This is William Windsor writing in defense of himself as the defendant in this case. He said, despite the undeniable proof, his words, not mine, 32-year-old federal judge Orinda Evans in Atlanta declared that the grandfather of three, Windsor, should not have fought the lawsuit, and she forced him to pay a fortune, turns out, in legal fees to Maid of the Mist. So, and my point is, what the hell does it matter what she thinks he should have done? She's a judge. She's not his shrink, and she's not his legal counsel. Brooke?
That's that judicial activism that makes us all really uncomfortable.
Cringe.
Yeah, and who knows what but we weren't present there for the entire case. You're talking about a judge that heard the case. She might have in the process seen some of Windsor's true colors, or maybe some side to it where she sees where there was probably a line crossed. I mean, who knows? I think this is a testament to the fact that we've moved away from a country of laws, and we've moved into a country of opinions and feelings.
And and he would certainly level that against the Supreme Court. But my feeling about this whole issue is the Supreme Court knew that if they were to do this, he says, well, this was them just abdicating their responsibility. Or could they have just discovered that opening up a can of worms where the Supreme Court ultimately puts federal judges on trial, which are ultimately appointed by the president. But since this originated in a state court and a city court where they're elected judges, now they're stepping in on top of the voters' will in duly elected judges. So you're setting a precedent here that's...
Which is kind of what I was saying
dangerous.
Before, is I think a lot of times when the Supreme Court denies a case, it has absolutely really nothing to do with them actually making an opinion or trying to allude to any kind of decision that they would have made. It's merely them saying, not our problem.
Yeah, yeah.
Not big enough to be our problem.
And I think most people, what they do is, if I'm the Supreme Court, like I tell my kids, I say, choose your battles wisely.
Yeah. Well, and this, honestly, you're right. Because you never know. I mean, if you get into, your kids pick a fight on the playground, and it's an unnecessary fight on the playground.
Right.
I mean, your natural inclination is to decide for your kids. But if you're going to be objective, you'd look into the information a little more and determine, this may be cause for a little bit of, what do we say, constructive criticism, disciplinary action, a little bit of a teachable moment.
Yeah.
So,
and we love this guy. Nothing against him. It's just that, hey, you win some, you lose some. Move on.
But I mean, if you're sadistic like my parents, then you look for the opportunities to really take it out. I mean, after all,
This is your
yeah. This is what is the result of that kind of parenting. Mom, hope you're not watching. But but it's a situation where it's kind of like beat it out of your kids because, as my father told me once, son, we had you to have someone to take care of the lawn. It cost us $40 before you showed up. So this is what we were here for. Love was in the air. I mean, ultimately, though, I don't know why this William Windsor character is shocked by this. He says that this is proof positive that we now no longer live by the laws of the land. We live in a police state, to use his language. And ultimately, newsflash, I mean, if interpretation of the judges making a decision that they didn't want to count this, didn't want to count this, take up this case. That's their prerogative to on ruling on this or not ruling on this. And honestly, if you're talking about judicial supremacy over constitutional supremacy, that didn't start yesterday. That, as I recall, some could trace it to the Supreme Court Justice Charles Hughes. And that was way back in the early 1900s. I mean, some people say this all started in the late 1800s. So it's been going on like this for a long time. So big story, I don't know. You be the judge. We'll see you tomorrow on The Hub.